Dear participants, organizers from the Children and Youth Major Group and colleagues, good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to be part of this session on MEA Synergies for a Resilient Planet, Youth Capacity Enhancement on Road to UNEA. For long, the scientific evidence has been very clear that biodiversity loss stems from outside the biodiversity governance realm across sectors of the economy and the society. Among the root causes for the failure to address biodiversity loss issues has been the insufficient recognition that the strong interlinkages between nature loss, climate change, and pollution are strongly linked, including their solutions. The importance of synergies was highlighted again and underscored in the nexus assessment of the IPBES study, which underscored that integrated policy approaches can generate cumulative and amplified progress across multiple global MEA goals, while fostering enabling conditions for the future actions and mutual benefits for all MEAs. It is now being increasingly recognized that the MEA implementation can benefit from integrated approaches and tools at the national, regional, and global scales that reduce duplication, enhance coherence and efficiency, and maximize impact, particularly in addressing the three planetary environmental crises and associated challenges impacting people and the planet, and most importantly, youth and children. While the overall ambition for cooperation between MEAs may be facilitated at the international level, it is at the national level where synergies are mostly tangibly realized and felt. On UNEP's work on strengthening synergies, cooperation, and collaboration for the national implementation of MEAs, it started a long time ago. Since its establishment, UNEA has called for enhanced cooperation among MEAs and for UNEP support to the MEAs through several resolutions. More recently, UNEA adopted UNEA Resolutions 6.4 and 6.6 on synergies, encouraging member states and stakeholders to advance synergies and facilitate cooperation across MEAs at the national level, where implementation is needed. The adoption of two major global frameworks, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, KMGBF, and the Global Framework on Chemicals, GFC, moreover, have provided momentum for cooperation across MEAs. Both frameworks emphasize that their implementation at the national level requires a whole of government, a whole of society approaches, which entails involvement of broad range of MEA focal points and other experts at the national level. In this regard, enhanced collaboration, cooperation, and synergies among the MEAs at the national level is the key and can contribute both to the effective and efficient implementation of the two frameworks, as well as the MEAs across the thematic clusters, including chemicals and waste. Since 2019, the Bern process on cooperation among the MEAs for the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework has been a cornerstone of UNEP's efforts to foster collaboration among over 16 MEAs. It has helped bridge thematic areas for stronger cooperation by promoting dialogue, knowledge exchange, and joint action. This process has strengthened the relationships and trust among the MEA secretariats, parties, and stakeholders, while its outcomes have received increasing recognition by MEA governing bodies and UNEA sessions. The Bern process has inspired many capacity-building activities in countries and regions, opening avenues for enhanced cooperation across national institutions, stakeholders in the implementation of MEAs. As a response to the growing needs, UNEP has been organizing a number of sub-regional capacity-building workshops in partnership with the secretariats to facilitate exchange of best practices and development of skills in coherent and synergistic implementation. When we speak about synergies for the national implementation of MEAs, we cannot forget about the role of the youth and children and what they can play in advancing national implementation. Today, there are 1.2 billion young people aged between 15 and 24 years, accounting for 16% of global population. In 2030, the number of youth will have increased by 7% to nearly 1.3 billion. The target date for the Sustainable Development Goals, which comprise the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In its youth strategy, the UN recognizes it cannot achieve its mission unless it partners with youth, ensures that they are only heard, but not only heard, but understood, engaged, but empowered, and not just supporting by leading global efforts. This principle stands true also for the national implementation. Multi-stakeholder engagement that promotes and respects environmental rights remains a key principle to advance national implementation. This means leaving no one behind, and most importantly, the youth, and fostering meaningful and continued participation of all segments of society, including youth. Youth hold a large portion of data through internet platforms. Adequate access to decision-making platforms, information data also remains a key principle, ensuring that the human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is respected and protected in practice for the interests of the present and future generations. On the road to UNEA 7 and beyond, UNEP stands ready to continue working with the MEAs, member states, civil society, constituents, in a whole of society to foster peer learning opportunities and highlighting good practices which can inspire action at large from global commitments to national delivery. I hope this online session will be a source of inspiration and information as you prepare for the Youth Environment Assembly at UNEA 7. Together, we can build a healthier, more resilient planet for the present and future generation. Thank you on behalf of Tita Gorginova, who is the Chief of the Environmental Conventions and Policy Branch at the Law Division in UNEP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kleiny. Thank you for those inspiring words. Hello, everyone. My name is Clara Beauvoir, and it is my pleasure to open this session today on MEA Synergies for a Resilient Planet. So after this amazing keynote speech, here will be the rest of the agenda for today. So I will start first with a few introductory words, and then I will hand over to our experts who will make presentation and exchange thoughts related to the MEA work. And after that, we will take the time to open the floor to all participants for a Q&A session. And we will also open the floor to a consultation. So please stay until the end of the session. It will be a great moment of exchanges. So first, just a very few words from my side. I am the co-facilitator of the Environmental Law and Right Working Group of the Children and Youth Major Group, CYMG. But today's session is reflecting great work done by different colleagues that I want to acknowledge before we start. So Aishwara, Gyubin, Hemavati, Shannon, and Clive, thank you, team, for your hard work and reactive work that allow us today to host this session. And thank you in advance to all those speakers and UNEP for co-sponsoring this session with CYMG. On the housekeeping side, can you just please all make sure that your mics are turned off during the presentations and to keep your question for the Q&A session. Of course, you're welcome to comment the session on the chat, where I invite you to present yourself now. We want to hear from you why you are interested to participate in this session as well. Also note that this session is recorded and that it will be shared on CYMG YouTube channel, probably in a couple of days. So if you wish not to appear on the recording, please keep your camera off or let us know if any difficulty. My email is now on the screen if needed. And finally, of course, I'll just be asking to all our dear participants to respect the usual rule of decency and politeness in the chat and when talking to the speakers. Just letting you know that in case of non-compliance with these rules, we reserve ourselves the right to dismiss troublesome participants. Well, enough of the housekeeping side, and let's now quickly introduce the topic of this session. MEA Synergies for a Resilient Planet, Youth Capacity Enhancement on the Road to UNEA 7. So on the way to UNEA 7, CYMG is developing this online capacity enhancement session to engage with youth on relevant challenges and opportunities related to MEA Synergies. In a few words, it aims to explore the MEA landscape, identify best practices for collaboration, and gather youth perspectives on innovative solutions. These perspectives will be consolidated to develop policy positions on the Japanese draft resolution that will be presented to us in a minute, and then will be integrated into the 2025 Global Youth Declaration on the Environment, ensuring youth contribution in shaping a more coherent and effective environmental governance architecture. So now that we understand a bit better the background of this session and that we heard from Mrs. Claimy about the role of UNEP and UNEA in ensuring MEA's coherence, we are continuing this session with a presentation of InfoMEA. So yes, Mrs. Raluca Crucero is Information System Officer of the UNEP Law Division. So I welcome you to present yourself and deliver your presentation. Thanks. Oh, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, good. We'll give you a minute. We can't hear you yet.
What about now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Perfect. Sorry for that.
No problem.
Yes, thank you very much, Clara, for the introduction, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak about InfoMEA and also the role it plays in the MEA synergies. As you mentioned, my name is Raluca Cruceru, and I'm an Information Systems Officer in UNEP's Law Division, mainly working on the InfoMEA project that I'm going to talk to you about right now. Is it okay to share my presentation?
Sure.
Perfect. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm just going to start by saying that what is InfoMEA? I don't know if any or many of you have heard about InfoMEA before, but basically it is the United Nations portal on multilateral environmental agreements. What this means is that InfoMEA is basically the one-stop portal for information on MEAs. And you are able to keyword search through treaty texts, COP decision, national plans and reports, laws, court decisions, and many more. All this data is aggregated from different sources like FAOEX, ECOLEX, and also MEA secretariats. And one is able to browse even by topic, by party, and by region. So a couple of features, and I'm just going to walk you through an example. So if one goes to InfoMEA and wants to look on a treaty, The idea is that Informea brings together all the information on all the treaties, so it is easy to go into the website and search, for example, for CBD. And then this will lead you to another page where you can see a lot of details such as treaty text, decisions, national reports, and so on, as well with the summary of the MEA information. Another feature that one may find useful is the country profile. So for every country, there is a collected information on ratification, national reports, national implementation plans, and many more, as well as contacts and national focal points. So we are trying to bring all of this together and also put the country profiles on the spot so that one can see the activity that is going on. Then one of the newest pages in Informea is the Global Goals page, which is basically linking the MEA content to shared global targets. So this fosters synergies by highlighting how they contribute to the achievement of the SDGs. So you can see here on the left that we have the global goals and also the frameworks such as Montreal and Global Work Framework on Chemicals, as well as the MEA strategic plans and policies and the regional plans and frameworks. On the right, you see a very complex map. This is the SDGs map, and the idea is to link all the goals with the targets, and some of these targets are even linked in the treaty text itself. It seems complicated, but if you would go, I put there a link to explore it a little bit, you would be able to see the connections and interlinkages. Another popular feature, and maybe one that would be very useful also for youth, if they would like to get more specific information on environmental law in an easy way, delivered in a very easy and simple way. So Informea has an e-learning catalog. So there are free courses translated in all UN official languages. And one is able to filter by MEAs, environmental topic, and SDGs, like you see here in the top filtering option. And the thing that we started recently is that we have dedicated sections to MEAs. So courses that are specific to an MEA, they can propose and we can build courses for every MEA. I put also a link here if you want to explore the catalog of courses. And this is also accessible from the Informea platform menu. Just a couple of words on what is next for Informea and what we have in plan for the following period of time. The first one is harnessing AI. We are working on implementing AI-generated summaries, which would basically automatically produce overviews of key environmental documents, such as national reports and national plans. Because we want to make information accessible in an easy way and also more efficiently to find the information, the key information. The next thing that we have taken feedback from our experience and that we think will be very useful, we are planning to implement youth explainers on Informea. So we have some sections, short, engaging explainers that would make environmental law more accessible. One example is a dedicated page all about MEAs that states all the essential information on understanding MEAs and even later understand also how to use Informea for this for finding knowledge about this. Another one that it's not written here, but we are thinking to make an introduction to the Informea features so that whenever a new person goes to Informea, they would know how to use it, what it can provide, and which features you can use for the information that you want to discover. And then the last thing is the user interface redesign. We have started the process of redesigning the user interface of Informea, taking into consideration all the modern features that are around the web nowadays. And we want to refresh basically this design to have a more clean, intuitive, and responsive look. Um, this is all from me, and I'm just going to say before I go that you can contact us at any time, especially that we are also in this. We will go at some point into this redesign process. So if you have any recommendations, any feedback, and any questions, just feel free to contact us. Thank you so much.
Many thanks for this informative presentation. I am sure now that InfoMEA will be useful to many of our participants, and at least from my side, this presentation allowed me to understand the full potential of InfoMEA that I will visit shortly for sure. Let me share again. Okay. So let's now hand over to Mr. Ishiro Hama, Assistant Director of the International Strategic Division of the Global Environment Bureau in the Japanese Ministry of the Environment, and to Mrs. Yukina Abe, who is her colleague and researcher. So I invite you to present yourself and to share your insight on the Japanese resolution proposal to UNEA 7 related to MEAs. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, together with my colleague Yukina-san, Japan would like to introduce our draft resolution. So over to Yukina-san.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes,
Okay,
we
thank
can.
you. Yes, thank you. Now, hello everyone. I'm Yukinabe, a researcher in the International Cooperation Division of the Ministry of the Environment of Japan. Today, I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to present from Japan under the important theme of MEA Synergies for a Resilient Planet. First, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the organizers of the event and to the young generation participant here. In this presentation, I will explain the importance of realizing synergies, followed by an overview of initiatives Japan is already implementing. Then, I will outline the synergy follow-up resolution Japan is proposing for UNEA 7 to further scale up these synergies. Now we are facing a triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Currently, countries are implementing multiple MEAs covering climate, nature, biodiversity, chemicals, and other areas. However, their independent operation leads to policy fragmentation and duplication, hindering efficient environment action. These global environmental challenges require integrated and coordinating action, not isolated responses. The key is harnessing synergy. In general, synergy means that implementing two or more initiatives together yields greater results than doing them separately. Simply put, it means 1 plus 1 equals more than 2. Promoting synergy provides a lot of benefits. It is promoting policy coherence, as policies and activities must be considered holistically rather than in isolation. It also leads to more effective use of limited resources. It expands the potential to address multiple environmental challenges simultaneously with the same budget and human resources. This is a significant advantage, particularly for developing countries and local governments. Furthermore, it leads to enhanced monitoring and streamlined reporting by countries. Furthermore, to unlock synergies, it requires engaging a broad range of stakeholders rather than selected communities, thereby contributing to the promotion of a whole of government and a whole of society approach. Japan believes that leveraging synergy is not only essential for achieving the Paris Agreement and the Global Biodiversity Framework (GBF), but also indispensable for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Against that backdrop, the adaptation of the UNEA 6 resolution on promoting synergies in the implementation of MEAs at the national level was groundbreaking development. As the proponent of the resolution, Japan is promoting several actions to accelerate the implementation of UNEA 6 resolution. For example, we provide financial support to UNEP to enable them collect and organize best practices on synergies in MEA implementation across countries and organize capacity development workshop in inviting government officials. Furthermore, we are working on the preparation of an Asia-Pacific synergy report together with experts across the region to accelerate tangible on the ground implementation of synergistic action. However, the latest UN SDGs report indicated that progress on the SDGs is not on track. We urgently need to further scaling up synergies not only national level but also on the ground level and increase concrete activities and projects to realize real impact. Therefore, Japan has submitted a follow-up resolution toward UNEA 7, building on the UNEA 6 resolution on synergies. This aims to enable countries to accelerate tangible synergistic activities not only at the national level but also at the local level. So I will explain the purpose of this follow-up resolution. First is updating member states' understanding. Although a resolution on the importance of synergies was agreed at UNEA 6, member states' understanding remains abstract. Through submitting this resolution, Japan aims to refresh member states' memory regarding the importance of synergies. Furthermore, recognizing the up-to-date scientific evidence and important progress since UNEA 6. Additionally, this draft resolution aims to serve as a guidance for member states to scale up tangible synergistic actions. This has three main objectives. First one is emphasize the importance of implementation at the local level. While the UNEA 6 resolution agreed to promote synergies at the national level, we consider accelerating implementation at the on-the-ground level to be also crucial. This element is included in operating paragraph 2 and 5. Second, one is recognizing UNEA as a key platform for discussing synergies. While each treaty, such as the UNFCCC, CBD, and the UNCCD, has its own COP where parties discuss agenda within their respective mandate, negotiation often operates its silos, failing to leverage synergies. To address these challenges, Japan believes the UNEA is a unique exchange platform for providing a space for member states to enhance exchange views and lessons learned on synergies. This element is included in paragraphs 3 and 6. Third is mainstream. While partially addressed in UNEA 6 resolution, we also emphasize the importance of member states recognize a whole of government approach and whole society approach as a concrete guidance, crucial for achieving synergies. This is included in paragraph 1 and 4. Japan does not consider this draft perfect, but we hope that putting this resolution on the table will accelerate discussions among member states and enable all member states to agree on tangible next steps at UNEP 7. We would also appreciate hearing your opinion today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much to our Japanese colleagues for the presentation of this resolution. We are looking forward to seeing the final resolution and the other states' support to this important resolution. So you can be reassured that CYMG will also remain a strong support at UNEA to make sure this resolution is going through. Okay, now I will open the floor to a discussion panel moderated by Hemavati. So I leave it to you now to present yourself as well as the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clara. I'm very happy to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Hemavati. I'm the founder and director of Enacted Foundation, a youth-led organization working on the triple planetary crisis. And we have three wonderful panelists joining us today, Mr. Ichiro, Chiara, and Siri. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us on this panel. And we're hoping to hear your thoughts. We had some lovely presentations helping all the young people on the call understand more about the conversations that is happening around MEA synergies and why is convergence even needed. So maybe before we move on to my questions to you all, I'd like to invite Mr. Ichiro to start off with a couple of opening remarks, if you had any, and then we'll move to other panelists. Over to you, Mr. Ichiro.
Oh, and thank you very much for everyone. This is Ichiro Hama, Assistant Director of the Ministry of the Environment, Japan. Again, we are very grateful for organizing this important event and inviting us to, join the discussion on the importance of synergies. As my colleague Yukina already explained, Japan believes the synergy is the only key solution for passing the resilient planet to the next generation. So I believe member states can support this concept and accelerate the tangible actions on the ground synergistically. And I hope this resolution will, conclude the adoption at UNEA 7. And this event would a crucial step for improving this draft resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ichiro. I think it's great that we have governments thinking about future generations, because it is for them ultimately, all the decisions that are being made applies to them, and it is for their future that we are also fighting for. Thank you so much for that comment. Now I'd like to invite Chiara, who's the Associate Program Management Officer at the UNEP Law Division. Over to you for opening remarks, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Hemavati. Thanks to you and actually to the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP for convening this very relevant and timely online session. Indeed, my name is Chiara Magrelli and I work within the UNEP Law Division and more specifically the Environmental Conventions and Policy Branch. And I'm an Associate Program Management Officer, but also an Italian JPO. And in my current past life, I was also part of Youth and Environment Europe, but this is, my past life. So I'm really pleased to join you today and to share a little bit about the work that UNEP has been doing, guiding by principles that are also enshrined not only in the UNEA Resolution 64 and 66, but also in the Global Biodiversity Framework and the Global Framework on Chemicals, really guiding the national implementation of MEAs through a whole of government and whole of society approach. So this for UNEP has meant going beyond not only ministries and the engagement with ministries and national focal points and MEAs focal points, but also communities, civil society, and critically, the young constituencies. So throughout our work in the implementation of the two resolutions, we have identified key opportunities that can really foster synergies, cooperation, and collaboration for the national implementation of MEAs. But of course, we have also identified challenges and institutional silos that we must counter and overcome in order to continue this very important mandate. So I really look forward to these opportunities to share some insights, exchange with you, and hopefully provide you a little bit more tools in your very extensive and quite frankly impressive toolbox on the road to UNEA 7 and the participation to the Youth Assembly. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tiara. We're very happy to have you here. And we have our third panelist, Siri, who's a program officer at the Site Secretariat. Siri, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hemavati. It's a real pleasure to be here and join this discussion. Thanks again for organizing this great event. So my name is Siri Mäkelä, and indeed I'm from the CITES Secretariat. I am responsible, among other things, on matters related to youth engagement. And I'm sure many of you know CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, is the only multilateral environmental agreement that specifically regulates international trade in wild species. So what that means is that CITES ensures that trade in CITES-listed animals and plants is legal, it's sustainable, and traceable. So that the use of natural resources, wild animals and plants, is not detrimental to the species. And of course, when it comes to the topic of this panel, it is important for countries to balance their concerns and reach their own approach to address their commitments to the different MEAs that they are members of, such as UNFCCC, CPD, CITES, to address the interconnected challenges, as a colleague from Japan mentioned, of climate change, biodiversity loss, also wildlife conservation. This is, of course, essential for achieving our shared environmental objectives. And again, these environmental agreements are mutually reinforcing, and the secretariats are working together to ensure collaboration. When it comes to youth engagement, it is an essential part of making these connections between MEAs real. And in terms of CITES, we have seen some encouraging development when it comes to youth engagement. So I'll just say a few words on that. In 2016, at CITES COP17, CITES parties did adopt a first CITES resolution on youth engagement. And this resolution acknowledges that youth today's youth will be, of course, in decision-making positions in the future, and that CITES parties must engage these youth now to equip them to be strong leaders in the future. And of course, the resolution also recognizes that youth already today have rich ideas, and they can bring solutions to species conservation and wildlife trade conversation. And what is more, with the support of Singapore, the first CITES Global Youth Network was also launched last year. And earlier this year, actually, the network organized its first CITES Global Youth Summit, where we had over 70 youth from across all of the regions. And in this network, we have youth that are already working kind of in the CITES domain. They are scientists, they are rangers, they are entrepreneurs, civil servants, lawyers, conservatives, and through the CITES network, they collaborate. They also build their own networks and also learn how to address wildlife trade challenges. And just my final point, I think there are a lot of different ways in which MEAs and also UNEP engages youth, but still they all can contribute to the same cause, which I think is inclusivity, intergenerational action. And of course, the more the different youth networks also across the MEAs also connect with each other, the stronger and more coherent our collective environmental action becomes.
Thank you so much for all the work you do, Siri. I think it's great to, create platforms for young people. And I think the youth space only needs to keep expanding. And thank you for the work that you do. Maybe I'll get back to, each of y'all with like very specific questions. And I want to start with Mr. Ichiro, because you always see everybody complaining about, how there's duplication, how everybody is repeating the same thing across conventions and stuff. But it is Japan, be it at UNEA 6 or UNEA 7, taking the lead on, okay, we have to take some action rather than just complain, right? So what was your inspiration? Like, where did this start off? If you could like share a little bit of what nudged you to push for making this proposal itself, and what is your long-term vision for this proposal? If you could like come in and please share.
I thank you so much for the question. And in response to the question, the slow progress of the SDGs is, the critical challenge for a resilient planet. So we must amplify the message that synergy is the only solution to address this. And as a proponent of the UNEA Resolution 6/4 on synergies, Japan wants to share this effort doesn't end. We must put the following resolution on the table in order to further strengthen discussions among member states as well as other stakeholders on the importance of synergies. This is not merely an MEA discussion. It is also a socio-economic issues, as Dane mentioned at the beginning session. The environment is the foundation of socio-economic system. Unless we use the environment as an entry point to create positive effect across socio-economic systems and accelerate the entire SDGs, we cannot pass on a sustainable and resilient planet to the next generation. So that's the, motivation of Japan to put this resolution and, toward the achievement of the SDGs and actions beyond 2030. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ichiro. I think it is a great takeaway to look at like synergies being the only solution, because far too long we've been only working in silos, although everything overlaps, everything is intersected with, the economic issue of the economy or social issues or environmental issues. You can't separate them, and synergies is the only way to go about it. And I now want to come to Chiara about, obviously, building on the need for like the slow pace, and everything is fragmented when it comes to SDGs, right? So every national government has to like implement so many things under so many conventions, and it's not always easy. How do you think, or what challenges do you think national agencies face when it comes to implementing these MEAs, and why do you think, say, synergies will actually address the problems that or the challenges they face? Over to you.
Thank you very much for this question. I will share some of the reflections that came from UNEP's work, specifically in the implementation of the two resolutions over the past 2 years, right? And these resolutions that called on strengthening cooperation, collaboration, and coordination for the national implementation of MEAs really emphasize the need for synergies across topics, across sectors, across areas. What these resolutions also did, they sort of strengthen an already existing mandate for UNEP to work with a wide range of partners. So across the UN systems, with other UN agencies, with UN country teams, with MEA focal points, but also directly with member states, technical experts, and civil society. UNEP has been bringing all these stakeholders together through capacity building workshops and initiatives. And actually, since I joined UNEP, I could already witness firsthand the outcomes of 3 workshops in 3 different regions, one in Central Asia, one in Asia Pacific, and one in Southern Africa. And what we saw as an outcome of these workshops are sort of common and repeating challenges that continue to hinder the progress. And I believe these are challenges in the national implementation of MEAs, but I think they can also be scaled up or down to different stakeholders. And the first is institutional fragmentation. So a lot of time, the mandate of bringing forward environmental policy and implementing MEAs at the national levels, but also achieving SDGs objective is sort of scattered, right, between different ministries, maybe the environment, the agriculture, the fishery, depending also on national constituencies. And another reality that we're facing increasingly more and more is frequent staff turnover. So shifting mandates, relocations, and often lead also to loss of institutional memory. So if there was a good practice, or if somebody held sort of like a knowledge or a key on really how to advance this national implementation, then sometimes if that key person is gone, then the whole process is sort of like, collapsing into itself. So that is one of the first challenges that really keeps recurring. The second is also related to incoherent data governance system. Of course, every MEA also has its own reporting requirements, and also being a member of different intergovernmental processes requires reporting. Data is there. That is also what national constituencies and other stakeholders are telling us, but it is often interoperable, meaning that it may work in one case, but it may not translate in another. And sometimes it's also scattered, even within the same, national structure, or even, within the same country. So this can not only limit the ability to really puzzle all the pieces together and, identify patterns, identify information to advance the national implementation, but of course it also limits public participation. If you do not have the knowledge, if that's not accessible to you, you're not going to be able to participate and to input, which leads me to my last point, which is more related to the legislative and political cadre and readiness. So many countries recognize and advocate for the principle to, for the human right to a clean, sustainable, and healthy environment, right? Which is a principle also recognized in a General Assembly resolution. But sometimes there's limitations in the participatory process because of the way that the legislative framework maybe embeds this or ties this to advancing the national implementation of MEAs or even SDGs at a more macro level. So what does this mean? That at the end of the day, we know that multi-stakeholder involvement is needed, but how do you ensure that happens? And how do you ensure that happens also at civil society level? And really, when we're talking about youth participation, that young people who want to be involved in decision-making processes are able to, because the legislative cadre says that they can, but also that they have the information and also that they have the access to the institutional knowledge and framework. So if there's one lesson that I learned since I joined, and that I believe UNEP has learned in the implementation of the 2 resolutions, is that synergies are key. These crises can no longer be solved in isolation. There are too many interdependencies, and progress in one area can accelerate progress in another, and inaction can hold many of them back. We keep working through these global frameworks that I mentioned earlier. They encourage countries to work together across sector, across stakeholders in a synergetic way through cooperation. So again, this also brings me back to you in terms of also synergies. Synergies goes across MEAs, across governments, but also across stakeholders. So not to see it only as this macro concept, what is it? No, synergies is also collaboration when it comes to, for example, major groups and stakeholders. So thank you. That would be it, and I hope this can help the discussion.
Thank you so much, Shira. I think my key takeaway is also I want to add on in terms of knowledge transfer, because you said institutional knowledge. It's not just across like somebody who left, but there's also need for knowledge transfer across conventions, because that's where you said, we're unable to use information itself, across various conventions, which I believe puts a lot of burden, for a lot of countries, again, to, redo compliances again and again, even though the data needed is very, very similar. Thank you so much for your comments. I will now come to Siri, because we've heard, government representative, we've heard the UN, but then we can go to a convention representative now. And what's your perspective and what challenges do you think, even like as the CITES convention itself, where do you see opportunities for synergies as a convention that is working exclusively on this endangered species, but also where do you think like challenges exist for the synergies? How do we implement synergies? Please, over to you.
Thank you so much. I think I will just echo Chiara, but from the CITES perspective, I think national authorities often face very practical challenges in implementing the MEAs, which also I think may link to the fragmentation. I think I'm just kind of, I don't want to repeat too much what Chiara said, but these challenges from CITES perspective also include, for example, inadequate national legislation, limited resources in terms of human resources, in terms of financial resources, and also, as Chiara also mentioned, insufficient coordination between agencies, and also lack of clarity about the respective roles and responsibilities of the agencies. Many authorities may also face gaps in scientific data in the CITES context, because we need very specific data to develop, for example, population assessment or management plans. So there may be gaps in collecting this data, and they may also face limited access to equipment, modern tools for achieving this data, for example, species identification, traceability, enforcement. And I think if we talk about addressing these challenges, it of course requires strong cooperation across institutions, not only between the MEA focal points and authorities, but also between environment, trade, customs, justice agencies, all of the stakeholders in the national level as well. Practical example of this is indeed the InforMEA that our colleague Raluca kindly presented earlier. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Siri. I think after listening to all the panelists, all I can imagine is like all the problems that we have identified just comes down to one solution: collaboration and working together, and collective efforts to address all the triple planetary crisis. I think that's a great takeaway for us. And I do want to come to just all the panelists. Feel free to come in when comfortable, but we also want to speak about how practical we want to be in terms of UNEA itself, like what concrete actions. We also have a couple of questions in the chat. What can young people really do, like in their own capacity for the synergies implementation? Because the issues we have identified, say, in terms of knowledge transfer or finances or, slow implementation of SDGs, is like sort of on the higher level. But then if you had to come down to like, these are the practical actions youth could take to support implementation and convergence across MEAs, what do you think young people can do? Anybody who wants to go first?
I could perhaps give a very practical
Yes,
example first to reply to your question of when we talk about synergies across MEAs, we indeed also talk about how biodiversity, climate, sustainable development intersect in people's lives. And I think youth-led initiatives can naturally operate across these boundaries because they focus on real issues rather than institutional mandates. And I could give you an example of the CITES Global Youth Network. As a result of our summit, the youth are actually planning to implement national or regional projects in their respective countries. For example, awareness raising on legal wildlife trade, species conservation, collaboration with universities. And even though many drivers of climate change or biodiversity loss are kind of outside of the CITES mandate, I think these kind of projects, concrete projects, have the potential to directly support CITES, of course, but also CBD, especially, we look at the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework Target 5, which is about ensuring that the harvesting and trade of wild species is sustainable. Target 9, it's about managing wild species sustainably. So I think this youth project can contribute to multiple environmental agreements at the same time in a very practical manner.
I can also come in if that's okay. Also thanking my colleague Siri very much for her intervention. I think I can speak more from let's say broader UNEP perspective, and I can even shed a few words on the law division. I also see there's a question specifically on that, and sort of give a twofold answer. One is more in terms of influencing the national context or sort of finding entry points in the national context for youth contribution and participation. And one is more at the intergovernmental level, right? And this may be a little bit of a repetition of what I said earlier, but really this sort of human rights-based approach is an excellent entry point because it serves as a sort of practical engagement with national governments and also recalling how whole of society is enshrined within global frameworks that also guide the work that we do. So this sort of can be served as an entry point into advancing policy making and sort of underlying or flagging where policy making is not inclusive and does not include the young constituencies on the ground. And in terms of what the UNEP Law Division does, for example, we recently published a report on climate litigation, and these processes such as climate litigation or evaluation of environmental information, participation in consultations can provide opportunities for young constituencies to participate and again, to flag what is being done right and what should be improved. And these are sort of practical and meaningful ways to intervene more in the national context. But when we speak more about engagement with MEA secretariats and also with UNEA, it's very important. And I mean, again, Siri also spoke a little bit about that. Be involved in the youth networks, in the, connect with if there are youth representatives and focal points. If they're not there, if they don't exist, advocate for their inclusion, advocate for your participations. And in terms of UNEA, for example, I am contributing on the UNEP Law Division side to organize the Multilateral Environmental Agreements Day. And this is a day that will take place on the 10th of December. It will be shaped through 2 high-level dialogues and 1 high-level moderated discussion on the conclusion. And this is what we will be talking about. We will be talking about synergies, cooperation, collaboration for the national implementation of MEAs And the title for MEA Dialogue 1 is Science Seal Delivered, Turbocharging MEA Implementation Through Whole of Government and Whole of Society Approaches. Accredited major groups and stakeholders are welcome to participate. So my advice is, of course, there's a very relevant opportunity dedicated entirely for the youth to participate to UNEA, to shape also the Global Youth Declaration on Environment, but potentially also connect to other means. For example, participation in MEA's Day. There will be also a whole week dedicated to MEA's side events and exhibitions. Participate, be there, engage, speak to the participant, and get inspiration and entry points on where you can, shape the discourse, come in and make the youth voice heard a little bit stronger when it comes to advancing the national implementation of MEAs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tiara, for that great response. I think there are quite a few folks who are new to the UNEA as well, I'm sure, on this call. So this is where you start. Go find, just like you said, every MEA has a youth constituency, so go find them, engage, just say hello. I think it all starts with a hello. So just go find the right people, join CYMG as well, so that you'll be able to engage and know more about UNEA and your engagement. And now over to you, Mr. Ichiro, for your comments on how young people should engage. And what do you think they can do to help the resolution be a success at UNEA 7?
Thank you very much for your supporting comments. Very heartwarming for us. And yes, I would like to briefly touch on the question you raised, the role of young people. That is significant, and explaining this fully is difficult. But one point here I would like to raise is the breaking down silos. This is one of the important role for younger generation. I hope, Japan hopes that young people with their network and, flexible way of thinking, using new technologies and driving power, can bridge the generation gap, provide fresh perspectives, and guide society toward, collective action rather than dividing. That's one message I would like to convey to all the participants here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ishiro. I think that's a very hopeful response. And I think young people are definitely already breaking down silos, coming together. And this is just the beginning of, a better future ahead. So thank you so much. And I will have to stop now. I mean, I think this panel can go on for a little longer, but we will have to stay, put a stop to this. Thank you to all the three panelists. Extremely grateful for your thoughts and comments. And I'm sure this would really help all the young people who'll be staying back for consultations to come up with their own perspectives on the resolution to help us also develop CYMG's position on the resolution. Before we move on to the consultation, maybe we can take a quick pause and request the participants to turn on the camera. We can take a picture with the panelists, and then we can move on to the consultations. Yes.
That would be great. And also maybe we can quickly open the floor if there is any further question. You, Hema, already asked all the questions that were written. Questions, feel free to ask team. And just before you take the picture, Emma, I have myself just a couple of questions for Chiara and Siri. It's more a practical question. So if the participants that are with us today are interested to find, for example, the recording of the UNEP regional workshops, is that possible? Is it available in the UNEP website or maybe on your YouTube channels? As well as how is the youth aware about what's happening in in UNEP or in CITES, how can they find the information to get engaged in the youth constituencies, either on social medias or on your respective website? Please let us know how to find this information. Thank you.
I can definitely clarify the question in terms of the available information that we have on the regional sub-regional workshops. Unfortunately, due to also some privacy reasons, we do not record them. However, on the UNEP website, you can find all the workshops that have been and the initiative that have been organized, and most of the time there is also background material, including workshop reports. And these workshop reports go much more into detail on some of the opportunities and challenges that I spoke about today, and they also go deeper into the regional or sub-regional context. So I would be happy to include some of the links in this chat for you to review. I think this can serve as good information material, but if it can serve for you as background material, then you're most welcome to consult it. Thank you.
And on my end, I can also reply on the CITES Global Youth Network information. So you can find in the CITES website CITES notifications to parties, where we communicate of all of the matters, including youth engagement. This might be a bit hard to find. It's a bit buried in the website. So an easier way might be just to follow CITES social media accounts. So we also inform there on these kind of opportunities. Thanks. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much. It is indeed very helpful. I now invite anyone else who would be interested to ask a quick question, because we are running out of time, to raise their hands and let us know if you have a question. Otherwise, we'll jump in the consultation phase, where we'll also have the time to debate and discuss. Hello back, everyone. I hope you had a very constructive session like we had. So, Hema, do we take just a minute to make a very quick presentation of what has been discussed? I think it would be a great idea, but noting we are lacking of time. So let's just resume very quickly what has been discussed in each group. And then if there is anyone that have anything to add to that, feel free to contact us. My email is in the chat, and you can send us any additional ideas you would have to be put it through for the resolution. Hema, over to you.
Thank you. I think I'll just bring up a key thing on, I think one comment was on how everything seems very generic, and the need for like methodology and maybe nuanced expression of how collaboration really needs to happen or cooperation needs to happen. And I think there was also a comment on creating a youth task force that specifically focuses on synergies itself. And everybody got back to speaking again about decision-making process and young people's representation. I think it's a common issue across all conventions. And we also have one, where I think there's also maybe if we could look at specifically a clause on youth where youth can engage for the synergies and everything else within the resolution itself, and how just the focal points need to talk to each other. And they're also very short of time. And back to you, Clara.
Thank you very much. It's a very good reflections that you just shared with us, and I'm looking forward to reading a bit further about what you guys discussed. From our side, we also shared similar views, and just in addition to what have been said from your side, we also have been thinking about asking for a transparent process for actors to report on their initiative to develop synergies, for them to share challenges and progresses. Also, to mention regional collaboration was something important to us, not just national, but also mentioning the regional synergies. That was for question 1. For having young people more involved, we were thinking about financing, like how the youth can be funded, how the task force could be supported to participate, but also put them in evidence-based data resources and work with the youth and other relevant stakeholders on evidence-based data resource on synergies. And finally, to include youth representative or youth perspective in its implementation reports to UNEA in UNEA 8. So for next year, sounds for us quite important. But again, we discuss different things that will be reflected in our final work that we don't have the time to share now. But if you guys, any of you have any additional comments, please send us an email and we'll share that with Japan. And if there is no further comments, I'm happy to close this session. So a quick thank you to all the participants, speakers, and organizers of this session. We will share this session on CYMG channel very soon, and our team remains available to discuss MEAs and to prepare UNEA 7, as well as the Youth Environmental Assembly that CYMG will host just before UNEA 7. So you can find all our information on our CYMG website or on our social medias. Well, thank you very much. And I wish you all a very good end of your day. Thank you, team.